Hello there. I'm calling this one Confessions and Be Your Own Alchemist. Thank you to Darren and to Shazia for inspiring me to make this film. So here goes. The retreat just a week ago was so extraordinary as I'm still in the process of digesting and understanding and putting into action what I've learnt from it. So, confessions. There's something that shamans do which is called the recapitulation process, which is where you allow yourself to drift into different time periods in your memory and take a look from the perspective of where you are right now. So I got myself into a nice state of being in the moment, and I allow myself to drift back into different occasions when I've been in relationships with people. And it hit me really forcefully how every single intimate relationship I've ever had, at a certain point in that relationship, I would get stuck in my rational mind. And I could see how doing that was my contribution towards breaking those relationships up. And to be equally fair and candid, I could see exactly the same thing going on in my partners as well. So, this is really an answer to a question that's perplexed me for a long time. Because the question I used to have is, how is it that you can start off so wonderfully with someone and it can end up in such a mess? And then I got into thinking about one particular moment when I was married, and there was one time in my marriage where I hit my wife. And I tuned back into that moment and I realised what was going on for me at that moment, which is I was completely caught up in my rational mind's views and opinions of what I thought things should be. I was in total denial about how they actually were at that time. It was one of those occasions which, with one viewpoint, is fantastically stressful, and another viewpoint is just hilarious. It was an incredibly long journey. It involved lots of snow, problems with the vehicle, lots and lots of things which at the time I labelled to be very frustrating and exasperating, and I allowed myself to get into a lot of anger. And what happened in the end, I completely failed to find a way to express how I was feeling in words, and that's why I lashed out. And that helped me to understand just how things escalate. And it all begins from judging the present moment and finding there to be something that I'm not happy about, something I dislike about it, something that can cause me to get upset, angry, whatever it is, rather than simply saying to myself, this is what it is, as I do much more now. At that time I was just full of complaints, resentments, and all the rest of it. So that's one example of me losing it completely, and that's what we say. We say the person has lost it. We say, especially Americans, they say they're mad. Don't they? They actually say they're mad. They're recognising at that moment they're insane. And the Chinese culture regards all manifestations of anger to be insanity, temporary until the anger dies down, and then insanity may or may not return. So then I'm thinking about another relationship, and I can see that what happened there is that there was a lot of wanting. This is another key that I'm understanding, is that it's really helpful to look at what allows the rational mind to take control. And one of the things it can do is it can take control through wanting. So if I want to be in a relationship, or I want my relationship to be a certain way, or even more honest and blunt, I want my partner to behave or be or do certain things. That's me in wanting. When I mean wanting, that means rational mind is taking control at that moment. And here is where we segue, as the Americans love to say, out of confessions and into alchemy. Because alchemy is turning base metals into gold, and that is a metaphor. It didn't mean that they sat around with crucibles heating up liquids. No, that's the image. That's the metaphor. What it actually means is that you realise that you are a temple, and that your temple contains base metals, and the base metals are wanting things, judging things, getting angry, getting physically violent, adhering to a belief system which says that you're right and other people are wrong, being willing to kill and torture people to support that belief system. That's all what happens when the rational mind takes control. It's all greater and greater degrees of being enslaved and ensnared in that rational mind. Most extreme forms of being ensnared in the rational mind is when you kill someone and when you take someone's life and when you take your own life. A person who takes their own life judges themselves as not being worthy, of not being good enough, as being worse than others. The person that kills someone is at the moment they're killing that person completely convinced, flying in the face of all reason, that that person is so wrong that they must be terminated, that it is unacceptable for them to exist. So here's another confession. There was a particular point that I was so completely ensnared in my rational mind with my marriage that I used to have thoughts, and the thoughts that I had about my wife is, I cannot stand her existence. That's really extreme, isn't it? That shows how extremely ensnared and enslaved at that point that I was, because I observed her, I judged her, I criticised her, I condemned her as not being who I wanted her to be, and that was what enabled that thought to come up. And the only difference between the murderer and me is that I had the thought and the murderer acts on the thought. But it's all a sign of insanity, it's all a sign of rational mind ego, as some people call it. I love David Bowie's word in the album Changes, the title track Changes. He talks about the faker. That's a lovely way to put it. I know of a group that I worked with for a year and we called it the rubbisher. These are all useful words to describe this aspect that is not us. And in Toltec shamanism, Don Miguel Ruiz and his ilk refer to it in this way. They say that we are all installed through interaction with parents, friends, teachers and siblings. We have all this thing installed, which they call a foreign installation. This foreign installation is the process by which we become domesticated into how the world is and how things are and the consensus reality. So it's such a thing as don't touch that, it's hot, it'll burn you. Completely common sense things, and then completely insane things such as those people have got a skin a different colour from yours, there's something wrong with them. Absolute bollocks. And yet these are all simple examples of how we become conditioned through other people's rational minds, and we're becoming conditioned into what the Toltecs call the foreign installation. Now, the Toltecs have a sense of humour, so they like to dramatise it, and they call it the parasite. And they say that the job of the shaman is to recognise the parasite within you and to transform the parasite into an ally. Now, that's really useful terminology, I find. So, calling it a parasite recognises it's something that literally feeds off your energy. Now, there's a way that you can cut this energy-sucking device off, just like that. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's really simple. You may want to close your eyes to do this, but it's not compulsory. Nothing's compulsory, but it just makes it a bit deeper if you close your eyes. So you sit or stand where you are, close your eyes, become aware of your breathing, become aware when you're breathing in, and become aware when you're breathing out. And allow whatever happens to happen. And if thoughts arise, be aware of them and notice that they're thoughts, they're just thoughts. If feelings arise, just become aware that they're feelings, they're just feelings. Nothing to get attached to, nothing to get bothered about, and return your attention to your breathing. That is it in itself. If you want to go even further, you can do this. You can, in this state of being aware of breathing in and breathing out, and being aware that thoughts come and go, and feelings come and go, allow your awareness to move into your hands and to become aware of your hands. Feel the energy inside your hands, and you may feel there's a tingling at first. Just become aware of your hands, the position they're in, whether they're folded or open, whatever they are, just become aware. No need to move them, just feel the energy in your hands, and at the same time as you're feeling your energy in your hands, shift your awareness to your feet. Give your toes a little wiggle, and then allow them just to become still and feel the energy in your feet. Now, being aware of the energy in your hands and in your feet, you can allow this awareness to continue to travel up your legs, all the way up to your thighs, your buttocks, your back, whatever it is that you're touching or whatever it is you're not touching, and all the way up to your head, down to your face, your chest, your arms, until you're aware of your body as an energy. Being aware of your body as an energy. Now, this is all massively significant deprogramming, and it's so incredibly simple. It's so simple your rational mind might want to judge this as not being difficult enough, not being complex enough, and maybe it won't this and maybe it won't that. Do this for 10 minutes before you've got something important to do, and you will find you do it so much better. So here I was before making this film. I was going to come down the stairs into the cellar and start making it, and I had this thought into my head. I thought, do nothing for 10 minutes. And I started doing nothing. Then I was aware of the breathing. Then I became aware of my body and the energy of my body, just as I'm describing, and it tuned me in to who I really am, beyond the sense of I, beyond the sense of the name, beyond the sense of an occupation. The fact that I am infinite possibility manifesting as consciousness, that I can become aware of my thoughts. I can become aware of my thought as I'm judging myself and judging other people. As soon as I become aware of thoughts, judging myself and judging other people, then I'm aware that I slipped into rational mind control. And as soon as I realise I've slipped into rational mind control, I've just exited the program. It really is this simple. Whenever you want to exit the mind control program of rational mind, all you do is you allow yourself to become aware of your thoughts. If there are any thoughts about you being better than anybody else or worse than anybody else, you know that rational mind just took control. As soon as you realise you're having thoughts about someone else as being better than or worse than, then you've deprogrammed yourself. You've popped out of the program because you're actually outside of it. Because there you are, aware in your infinite consciousness, manifesting infinite possibility into the awareness that yes, there were some rational mind judgments just happening then. That's all that was going on. And so this ability to be an alchemist is turning the base metal of judgments, criticisms, resentments, complaints, upset, anger, rage, irritation, the desire to kill, the desire to terminate your own life, as all part of the bollocks of the rational mind's control technique, which is simply a fine insulation which was installed into you as you grew from a baby into a child, so you would have a description of the world, so that you would know how to operate within the consensus reality. That you'd be able to do things like work and go to church and eat food and pay our taxes, as the wonderful Morpheus says in the film The Matrix. Yes, the Matrix is all around you when you're doing all those rational, mindy things, that's right. And you can become aware, oh, look, I'm filling in my accounts. Oh, I'm doing my tax return. The moment you become aware that you're filling in your tax return or doing your accounts, you are infinite consciousness expressing itself through infinite possibility and confining yourself for that moment to the awareness that what you are doing is you're filling in your accounts or doing your tax return. Because you're aware of it, because you're conscious of it, you just woke up. You're just deprogrammed. It really is that simple. This is turning the base metal into gold. And the more you do this, the more you'll notice something. Yeah, it's funny. Everything that we become attached to as human beings is funny. It's all very funny. And as my dear friend Robert Fellow Shaman says, just look at the number of times you can apply this sentence to situations. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Someone was due to arrive for a personal retreat yesterday. It doesn't matter. They did what they did instead. It doesn't matter. That gave me a whole load of free time. I wasn't expecting to work on this film. It doesn't matter. And I read a book about this guy, this Russian guy. And it's such an amazing book because it describes the conditions of his life, which I judge just slipped into the rational mind, just woke myself up, to be very oppressive, very harsh circumstances, seemed to be very cold, lack of love, rational mind judgment, just deprogrammed myself, yeah? And he goes on, and he develops lots of wanting. Remember, when you want something, that's rational mind dominance again. He wanted to be important, rational mind dominance. He wanted to be a leader of a gang and have people look up to him, rational mind dominance. He wanted to be a celebrity in his own locality, rational mind dominance. In due time, he eventually learned to become a writer, and he had an urgent desire, and he wanted to publish books, rational mind dominance, and become world famous, rational mind dominance, and have people sitting at his feet and listening to his every word, rational mind dominance. Yeah, can you see how it works? Can you see how it works for this guy? Can you see how it works for me? But as soon as I become aware of it, I wake up. So this guy goes through all his experience. He develops a lot of anger in his life. He becomes very upset about oppressed minorities. And this develops in him eventually a lot of rage. And he becomes obsessed with the idea, obsession, rational mind dominance, ego, that there are people who are so wrong they need to be killed. These people are right, those people are wrong. And he wants to fight wars. He genuinely wants to fight wars. But the problem is, living where he's living, there aren't any wars. When he goes and lives in a different country, and he goes and travels around a different country, which is also at peace, to a country where people are fighting wars, and he enrolls as a soldier, and he shoots a gun. And I don't know whether he kills people or not. That's not the point. He goes through all these experiences, wanting to kill. And eventually he becomes arrested, and he ends up as a long-term inmate in the Russian gulag. And in that prison, he has the most extraordinary experience. He is there for years before he gets this experience. In this experience, he's cleaning an aquarium belonging to the prison official. And it's something he's done many times before. And all of a sudden, that's it, he woke up. He realizes that he is not a prisoner. He is not a person with a number. He is not cleaning a fish tank. He is not standing in the prison official's room. He is none of those things. He is infinitely greater and infinitely more magical and infinitely more wonderful. And in fact, he is a God in the making. And he suddenly wakes up, the rational mind trance dissolves completely. He loses all sense of space and time. He loses all sense of form. There is no form in his existence. He is simply infinite possibility manifesting his consciousness, and everything else has gone. This is what I experience in my 5 experiences with Salva Divinorum. This is what people experience when they come to Nature's Medicine retreats, when they completely let go of their rational mind's impulse to control every moment of their experience on that retreat. When that happens, bang, that's it. Free. Woken up. The parasite for that moment has gone bye-byes. So back to the parasite, what we learn through Toltec shamanism is that when you become aware of what's going on and you observe yourself constantly, and you're aware when your rational mind takes control, and the moment you become aware of it, you deprogram. That is the beginning for you to actually enable your rational mind to become a powerful ally. And this is what happens. The parasite in Toltec shamanism is transformed into the ally. I make use of my ally many moments in my life, but especially on the retreats. My ally gives me constant advice about what I need to be doing. Now it's time to do this, now it's time to do that. Go and look at that person, see if they're okay. It's time to go and prepare this next stage of the process. This is what happens. The rational mind turns from a petty tyrant into an ally. And one of the ways you can get this experience is to go through something like severe illness, torture, imprisonment. Or if these things are too extreme for you, you can go and do a retreat. Or you can take things into your own hands and find your own individual way of doing this. So alchemy is changing base metal, rational mind dominance, into gold, full awareness that there is no space, there is no time, everything is everything, it all is what it is, and yes, infinite possibility manifesting as consciousness continually. Irie. Hello again. So this is a little separate piece. I finished the film, I took up the iPad and I thought, yes, thought that I'd failed to press the button correctly. It hadn't come out, the entire film simply didn't work. And then that enabled me to plunge into a moment, and the moment was disappointment, negativity, just like that, and it's like, and then as soon as that happened, I observed myself going into that little negative spiral, that little negative vortex of, oh, it didn't work. As soon as I observed myself doing that, I started smiling and I laughed. I thought, oh, well, it is what it is. If it came out, it came out. If it didn't, it didn't. And at that moment, I let go completely about whether that film was going to be existing. Was I going to bother to make it in? Was I just going to forget it? Whatever. And then I got upstairs, checked it out, and it was there. Letting go. All part of the magic. Cheers.